You are now listening to the Lone Wolf
the Lone Wolf podcast.
Me and my friends have a friend called Michael. Me and my friends. Well, me and my friends have a message for you, Michael. Me and my friends. Well, come on, Michael. Push a little harder. Try a little more. Get your feet on the floor. Come on, Michael. You can make it if you want to. It's just not the same without you.
I took a bite out of the Big Apple, and boy, was that bite big. New York City, baby. I went there on December 11th to the 14th, and let me just start off with my trip to there, which is like most people travel, unless you're some interdimensional alien transporting your UFOs, as Alex Jones would say. I took the plane via Southwest, because shout out to Southwest for actually doing like real people deals, you know. Not saying like, oh, sale for $500 for a round trip flight. That's not a sale. Normal people can't afford that. I took the Southwest flight and I did the whole early bird thing. But something I learned that I shouldn't have done was I wanted to sit up front because it's got a lot of like very up front, like the first row. But the baggage was kind of like the overhead things were filled up in the first. So I went to the middle of the plane and put my baggage there, and then like shimming my way back up to my seat. And I just shouldn't have done that. There's not enough room to do any of that at all, and I felt like a dick for doing that. Oh yeah, and then when I came back, this woman, I guess, wanted to sit there with someone, and I guess she felt like I really wanted to sit there, or like she was taking my seat, so she got up. So I probably pissed off all these people by like bumping into them and waiting through them on the plane, and then had to kick this woman out of her seat, but I didn't really kick her out. But actually, before I even got on the plane one night, shout out to Ben Nielsen, really such a thoughtful person. He got me a pair of wolf socks, these really cool like design socks that had a wolf. They're like blue and yellow and gray, but it has a wolf howling to a yellow full moon. I just thought that was like cool. It was like a gift to send me off to New York, but I thought that was really cool. But yeah, went to Lambert, flew to New York, and landed at LaGuardia, which the terminal in which you like board the Southwest and get off is nice, but I tell you what, dude, the TSA checkpoint and all that stuff is absolutely garbage. Like, there's no excuse to have an airport feel that just old and just feel just like stuck in time. And there was only like 2 or 3 TSA checkpoints. You're in freaking New York City. Have all those things open. It took for freaking ever to go through there. So I was definitely not impressed by LaGuardia. But landed in LaGuardia and surprisingly was able to get into the city a lot more easier than my past times in Chicago. But it's probably because I landed at the airport and just called it a Lyft and was able to ride from Queens to Brooklyn, which is where I had my Airbnb. Oh, which by the way, dude, I really wish I'd taken my podcast gear with me to Brooklyn. Because I actually talked to the host. She's a girl named Tracy from Beijing, China. We talked for like 2 hours, and I thought, man, I would have brought that. I wish I would have brought that stuff because we had a really cool conversation. Like, just from a consumer standpoint, who do you know that does a freaking podcast with the guests that they don't even know from, Airbnb? Like, that would personally catch my eye and make me want to listen to it. And I need to start filming my podcast too, which I'm actually going to do, but I actually just got a camcorder, and I need to figure out if I can make my Canon camera record for longer than 30 minutes. That's a problem with most DSLRs, but I got the camcorder. I got 2 tripods. I'm about to order another camcorder because there's no excuse to this year. I need to start putting my podcast on YouTube, like the full episodes and little clips. There's no excuse. I've already managed to know how to do all this audio stuff well. Now I need to do YouTube and try to grow this podcast and my YouTube channel. But yeah, dude, going back to the Brooklyn Airbnb, Great price. It's not the closest to Manhattan. It takes a little bit. You gotta take a bus, and then it'll take you to like you gotta go like 9 stops to a train station and take that from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So if you actually find a better deal in Manhattan, I would do that because there's ridiculous amount of stuff to see in Manhattan. But the view was absolutely incredible from this Airbnb in Brooklyn. It's like this. It was the 6th floor above this apartment called Soco in the Clinton Hill neighborhood of Brooklyn. And if it was like summer, it would just be an ideal place to just sit out there and just be absolutely in awe of the view. I mean, you got the World Trade Center, you got a bunch of the skyline in your view, and just a little like clip of some type of bridge might be the Manhattan, but I would highly advise it. Her name's Tracy, and it's in Clinton Hill in Brooklyn. So if you listen to this and you want to go to New York, check that out. But dude, honest to God, the first day didn't go as planned. Nothing like a headache to ruin a trip, and I don't know if I need to start like doing stuff better or like carrying. I don't know what I gotta do. I gotta carry oxygen with me, like on the plane, or not on the plane, but I don't know what I gotta do because when I went to Pittsburgh and got there, I actually didn't feel bad. I mean, I took a nap, but later that night I had a bad sinus headache. But this one, I should have done what I did in Pittsburgh. I should have taken a nap as soon as I got there. But no, I was like, oh, I'm in New York. I gotta go do this and I gotta do that. So I ended up getting a bad sinus headache that, unless I have medicine or anything with me, it'll last forever. And so I ended up sleeping in and missing the Rockettes show. So I bought tickets to go see the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall. Ended up missing that because I wasn't responsible. But nothing like a freaking good headache to run a trip. And it's like, the way I feel, man, I could be in absolute paradise, but it will seem like bleak and just absolutely fucking miserable to me if I have one of my sinus headaches. But I eventually made it to Manhattan the first night. And the first night I was there, I, of course, went to Times Square. I just wanted to get a lot of the touristy shit off my list. But this is kind of a bad thought to have. When I was in Times Square, I saw Lieutenant Dan. It was like this, I guess looked like a veteran. He didn't have any legs and was like in a wheelchair. And I had this bad thought. I was like, oh, I wonder if I should offer to take him to the liquor store like Forrest did in Forrest Gump. But immediately after I thought that, I just thought, what in the world, Michael? Why are you having thoughts like that? It's dark humor, and it's funny, but you shouldn't be having these thoughts. Oh, yeah, something I forgot to mention was when I was on the plane, just listening. I usually listen to podcasts, but I got some more movies I need to download to my phone and watch. But I was listening to a podcast talking about Hannah Gadsby and her anti-comedy, and I had the misfortune of watching some videos of it and whatnot. And can I just say, she is the Lena Dunham of comedy. And when I say that, Lena Dunham is just like the antithesis of acting. I'm not saying she can't act, but she's such a cunt. And everything's so overtly political and so infused with her privilege, Manhattan, New York City, white leftist PC bullcrap that just ruins any form of artistry or any. I don't know. It sucks me out of the story. And Hannah Gadsby does the same thing. And if you had the misfortune, actually, don't even watch it. But she, with all these stupid leftist propaganda comedians that Netflix is pushing, hers is one of them. And it's basically just a TED Talk talking about all the misfortune she had. And there's like no laughter and it's applaud. Like it's absolutely garbage. She's the perfect example of, if you let the left control culture, they'll just demolish everything. And they're doing that with comedy. They're attacking Louis C.K. for making a joke about the whole Parkland shooting victims. I haven't listened to it yet, but just like, in my opinion, comedy thrives on the fringe of socially acceptable and downright offensive. Like, that's where it thrives. But no, these people, it's just sickening. And she is like the leader of that. She's the leader of this whole anti-man anti-funny comedians. And but yeah, I thought that was a pretty funny comparison that I thought of while I was on the plane. But yeah, I'm gonna bounce back and forth between Brooklyn and Manhattan because that's just where I stayed. But yeah, and I bounced back from the plane and being in Manhattan, whatever. So maybe I should write my notes more in a chronological order. But fuck it, I gotta bang out like 3 or 4 episodes here. I'm ready to just get this out of the way so I can finally release them after a month in waiting. I just had this thought. You can tell you're closer to getting to Brooklyn on the subway by the amount of white people wearing beanies, glasses, and cuffed pants. You know, the ones that complain about the evils of capitalism and corporate America, all while tweeting on their iPhone X's and sipping on their $7 organic, non-GMO, vegan, fair trade latte that they got from their super secret hole-in-the-wall coffee shop where they only accept vintage coins and dollars as a suitable form of payment. We only accept vinyls from the 60s for your lattes. And, Brooklyn's kind of cool, actually, though. It still has a lot of the old city feel and look to it. And in my opinion, it has some of the best views of Manhattan that you can get. I actually got an awesome long exposure picture at Pebble Beach after a 14-mile walking day. It ended up being my favorite picture of the trip. And my left foot was freaking raw after that, though. I think I walked almost 40 miles in 3 days. Granted, most of that wasn't necessary because I didn't use common sense sometimes, but nonetheless, it happened. Oh, yeah. One of the stupid things I experienced in Brooklyn, though, was there was a coffee roaster, and I went to this place that's in the Brooklyn neighborhood of Dumbo, which is an acronym for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. And I went to this coffee roaster, and I wanted to get like an iced vanilla latte because that's something I'm kind of into. Not so much now. I kind of stopped drinking, even just like 1 cup of coffee a day. I just stopped drinking it and just stopped drinking it entirely because it just makes me feel, I don't know. You come down off of that and you feel tired, and it's just it doesn't quench my thirst, and it just leaves me dehydrated. But in this case, I just wanted to see if the place had an awesome iced vanilla latte, so I went up to the counter and I asked for that, and the hipster said in the usual hipster upspeak, yeah, so we don't actually do syrups in our coffees, but you can do like chocolate, caramel, or we have mint as well. Which wouldn't surprise me if it's only there temporarily because it's in season. It's also handmade by them, which probably means it's not good at all. I've had stuff like that before. It's basically not sweet and flavorless, but they pride themselves on it because it's homemade. I imagine if I went ahead and ordered that, they probably would have told me that they had to roast the beans on the spot and then milk a fucking cow. It's on the paid staff. And 30 minutes later, I get my 8-ounce latte without a straw because, God forbid, I use a fucking straw. Oh, and it also wouldn't surprise me if they were like a lot of the New York City shops with absolutely 0 places to charge your phone. But no, I didn't put myself through all that hassle. I instead asked them to give me 1 minute, which was my nice way of saying, go fuck yourself, I'm leaving. I was able to get an awesome picture while I was there, though. I went to the intersection of Washington and Water Street. It's where you get the classic Dumbo picture that you'll see like all over Instagram and the movie Once Upon a Time in America, where the buildings from the Manhattan Bridge frame the Manhattan Bridge column. I'm sorry. It's where the buildings frame the Manhattan Bridge column, and the gap in the bridge column perfectly frames the Empire State Building. Got a good pic of that, but I kind of wish the sky would have been more overcast because I could have gotten better exposure. And I wish I would have gotten another shot. If you watch the movie Once Upon a Time in America, which is just a classic, they show this shot, which is the shot everyone gets of the kids skipping across the street, where the classic Dumbo shot. But then the next one is them by the Manhattan Bridge, and it's like this also another cool shot that frames one of the columns. I wish I would have gotten that, but whatever. I got it. I'm happy I got it. Plowing ahead here. Yeah, one of the thoughts I had was cities seriously need to start addressing mental health. There was a man who was asking for money on the subway. He got a sandwich from a lady, then proceeded to wave his sandwich and yell at some random guy for no reason. Like, they keep building all this stuff that they don't need, but neglect the mentally handicapped to negatively affect the citizens they're trying to attract by building the shit not needed. Like, New York is the second, it's behind, I think, Tokyo. Or I think it's Tokyo, Japan. It's the second richest city in the world. Like, their GDP is insane, but they just refuse. They turn a blind eye to building infrastructure for people who need it to kind of, clean up the streets, so to speak, of these mentally handicapped, or these mentally ill people that are going to negatively affect the lives of the people that are productive members of society in New York City. Oh yeah, another thing I saw on the subway, which, by the way, if you've ever been in New York City, if you actually want to like not spend a fuck ton of money, that's the way you get around, is buses and subways. But I saw this psychic poster that said Keanu. And just made me think of, like, can you imagine Keanu Reeves as, like, young Keanu Reeves as, like, a psychic, like, hello, come in, let me read your mind. Sit down. Were you born in September? Just asking all these stupid questions in his, or at least in the impression of his voice. But I tell you, all respect to Keanu Reeves. He's been through a lot in his life. I like his acting now, but let me just be dead honest, dude. His acting was so cringeworthy when he was younger, especially in the Francis Ford Coppola's version of Dracula. It was just like, oh my gosh, like, you wanted him to not be in a scene just because he totally got removed from the story just because of how cringeworthy his acting was. But who am I? I'm not a famous Hollywood actor, a freaking A-list actor who makes millions of dollars in movies. But, I actually think that might have been on my subway ride to Radio City Music Hall, because I was like, damn it, because I missed the thing. I'm not gonna, not see Radio City Music Hall, because I bought this New York pass, and really do your research before you buy that, because I did not end up and spend more than 3 days in New York City. Spend like 5 to 7, because it's so big. There's so much stuff to do. You really have to spend that much time, like, seeing everything and actually enjoying it, sitting in, I don't know, for example, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and actually taking that in instead of like, okay, let's go through everything and rush. But yeah, I don't know if it's worth it just because I didn't use everything. In fact, one of the things that the New York Pass allows you to do is go on a tour of Yankee Stadium, which I'm not a Yankees fan, but I am a fan of baseball. And, real recognize real. That's one of the best teams in sports, period. But I freaking took almost an hour train ride from Brooklyn to the Bronx, only to find out that it's freaking closed until the day after I left, which is a bummer. But that wasn't this day. I rode the subway to Radio City Music Hall and got a little tour. And which, by the way, the tour guide, she kind of looked like a fat Emily Blunt. I don't know if she lost about 200 pounds. I think she'd be a killer. But wait, Michael, you're fat shaming. How dare you? No, I'm just stating that if she were a bit healthier, she'd be a heartbreaker. I'm not saying she's less of a person because she's bigger. I mean, who the fuck am I? I'm certainly no looker. Hell, I could lose 40 pounds myself. But, I don't know. The girl's got potential, and hopefully she's got one of her goals to get, a little bit healthier. Hopefully she'll do that. But, it's pretty neat. I actually got to see, the last 30 seconds of the show. So, technically, I guess I saw a show. If it's a little bit of a stretch there. But I got a really cool picture of the arena, which I probably actually wouldn't have got with just the seat I was in. And actually, a cool story, I got to meet a 13-year veteran, Rockette, who went to school in Columbia, Missouri, because we did pictures with her, and she asked everyone where they're from. And so I told her, I said, well, she asked me where I was from. I said, I'm where the Rockettes are originally from. She goes, oh, St. Louis. I said, yeah, but I'm actually from Alton, Illinois. And She was like, "Oh, cool! I went to school at some place, not Mizzou, but she went to school at some place in Columbia, Missouri." I just thought that was a cool little thing. Like, he's this awesome dancer and one of the most like legendary, live acts in the world, and we've got this connection that we both, spend some time in the Midwest. I got love for my Midwest people. What can I say? Oh yeah, but a random thing I wanted to ask. And please, if you're from like New York, just reach out to me if you listen to this. But is double parking on a side road a thing in the East Coast? I was walking down the street in Brooklyn to go to one of the bus stops, and saw a whole street with cars parked next to each other on the sidewalk, or not on the sidewalk. Say like one car would be next to the sidewalk, there would be car literally on the side of that. Like there's no way, and there's cars in front and back. There's no way for you to get out of that. Like it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, I would personally flip shit if that was my car and I was trying to get somewhere. Unless you have an MTA pass, like, you're trapped. Oh, dude. This is something I didn't know until I was on the plane back to St. Louis. Go figure. But Kanye West, like, hands down my favorite rapper. One of my favorite artists was in New York City on the 14th, the day that I left. I wish I would have known, like, where he was. And I wish I could have just been, like, the exact place that he was, just to actually meet him and just like tell him how much I really respect who he is and what he does. Dude, he's honestly got one of my big inspirations to pursue the things I hold dear and not be ashamed of myself and my vision. And he especially holds that characteristic true now that he's like not ashamed to be pro-Trump and to support Republicans. And I don't know, dude, just mad props to the guy. But yeah, I just want to record this, reflect on my trip, and hopefully, and if I don't go back in the next 5 years, I can point back to this and be like, oh, that was nice. A little nice time the little fag had in New York City. No disrespect to fags. I don't hate fags. But yeah, man, I went everywhere. Like I said, I walked 40 miles, I think, almost 40 miles in 3 days, so... But New York's so big. I didn't get to see Greenwich Village, which, by the way, in my opinion, if you stay in New York, start in, like, I guess it's called Upper Manhattan. Yeah, I think it's called Upper Manhattan. And work your way down, especially if you stay to Brooklyn, work your way down to Lower Manhattan. Just because, like, I don't know, it's just more chronological. No, not chronologically. It just makes more sense to work that way. So you're not just bouncing left and right and up and down. And I felt like if I'd done that, I would actually seen Greenwich Village. I wanted to see, like, I think it's called Washington Square Park. I could have seen that. I barely stepped foot in Central Park at all. I think I went to the Met Museum, but I was just not feeling it at all. The only reason I did that was to justify having that New York pass, but I barely, like, checked out anything at the Met Museum, which is a shame because it's like one of the best museums in the world, according to people who rate museums. Or, I don't know, it might just be a combination of everything, like people reviewing it. And I just got some picture. It ended up being blurry. It was kind of a bummer, but didn't get to Greenwich Village, didn't get to do Central Park. There's probably some other things. Oh, yeah, I didn't get to see some cool vantage points in both Brooklyn and Manhattan. I wanted to do the shot from Manhattan, from the Woody Allen movie Manhattan. I think that was in, I forget, I don't know how you get there. Didn't get to do that. It's just, there's so much to do, and unless you wake up like at like 5 or 6 a.m. and just go nonstop until, like 10, it's hard to squeeze that all in, especially if you have a piece of shit battery pack like I did that doesn't fucking work. So I bought this battery pack, which first of all weighed like a ton, and charge it up. And you put it on your phone. So whenever you need to charge your phone, so instead of like carrying like a battery or a power bank or a battery pack like that, you just tap a button on your phone. The piece of shit doesn't work. So now I'm limited to the battery of my phone, which iPhones are notorious for not having the best battery. And since my phone usage actually went up 800%, my phone guilt trips me into telling how. Well, it doesn't guilt trip me. I signed up for that, but there's a feature in which you can tell your phone to tell you how much phone time you're using. I kind of like that just because it keeps me accountable for being addicted to my phone. But my phone usage went up 800% the week that I was in during the week that the 3 days out of the week that I was in Manhattan. That doesn't make any fucking sense. My phone usage for a week went up 800%, but it was because of the 3 days I spent in Manhattan. But yeah, so that was a bummer. But I probably, yeah, like I said, I probably could have actually went all the places and had enough time to do everything if I actually had a source of power to work with. But yeah, man, I'm still pretty pleased with everywhere I went to. I went to Radio City Music Hall, like I said. I went to the top of the Empire State Building, top of the Rock, which is the Rockefeller Center. I've seen the Rockefeller tree, which, might I add, not all as hyped up to be. Like, it's big and it's cool, but it's not like, oh my gosh, mind-blowing. What I actually found was more entertaining and more, like, fantastical was right across from the Rockefeller Promenade is the Saks Fifth Avenue Light Show. It takes up the whole wall of the Saks Fifth Avenue store, and it plays this beautiful, like, traditional, American holiday or American Christmas music, because fuck saying Happy Holidays. And it's just beautiful, man. And then it's right next to St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is just, oh man, I love these old churches that are right smack dab in all the modern, like, architecture of cities. I just think it stands in such contrast to the city, and it makes it that much more beautiful. I got some good pictures of that. I got a really cool long exposure where, like, the car lights are going through Saks Fifth Avenue, but Saks is in focus, and it's really cool. But yeah, Rockefeller tree, not that impressive. And in fact, a lot of my trip was just like I'm so glad I got to see it, but I don't know. I guess a lot of it I just saw as like, oh, it's really not, like, people hype this up a lot. It's not that crazy cool in person, Or maybe I feel like that was the only thing that really stood out. It's like, oh, it's like cool, but it's not like, oh my gosh. I don't know. The trip was full of a lot of exploration, a lot of curiosity, but also a lot of compromise. And I don't know. I think that's just the limitations of having to walk a lot of places and time. But all in all, I'm so glad I made it to the Big Apple. I'm not gonna lie, and it might be biased because I'm from Illinois. There's definitely a lot more stuff to see in New York City, but I personally like Chicago better. They both have that new and old city feel. But I think Chicago's it's definitely cleaner because New York City isn't built with alleyways where you can put garbage in garbage cans or dumpsters. They literally put their trash on the freaking sidewalk where everyone walks. And I got a few wafts of that while I was in there. But I went in the winter, which is not as bad. Like in the summer, I say it's everywhere. And there's cockroaches and rats and all that nasty shit. But yeah, super glad I went. And the only thing that was notable, I guess, after all that, after seeing, Radio City, after doing all the typical touristy stuff, Statue of Liberty was, it's not really notable, but it was just something that was kind of annoying. When I went back to LaGuardia, to the piece of shit TSA checkpoint and all that stuff, it took forever. There's no reason for that. I'm sorry. That should have taken that long. Thank God for AirPods, and I wish I would have put them in earlier because I was standing in front of this guy who was bragging about, like, he did some auditions. I don't know if it's for, like, financial or anything, but he's just talking loudly and just so full of himself, and he'd do this nervous laugh when he was talking to whoever he's talking to while he's doing this so-called humble brag about himself. He would just go like, oh yeah, they told me like 10% of the people only get through, and like I definitely got a place here. It was just so annoying. I'm thinking, oh, I just need to blast this music. I can't wait till I get away from this fucking idiot. But other than that, most of the trip was filled with really cool things, really positive things, some compromises. I had some melancholy thrown in there just because I'm very empathetic, And I seen, you know, some of these people in New York that just seemed like the city had beaten the shit out of them. They had a lot of the energy and soul sucked out of them. But I mean, that's some of the experiences you get with traveling. I mean, you're there and you're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but some people are used to all of it, and they're just, you know, it's just another day to them. But I do recommend going out to New York City. It's like Chicago's amazing, but New York has a whole different feel to it. I mean, it's more of a global city, you know. But yeah, this is my podcast about New York City. I'm glad I went to the Big Apple, and can't wait to go some more places this year, 2019. But guys, thank you so much for listening to this. This is episode 38, I believe. Yep, episode 38. I'll see you on episode 39. Thanks so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Summer journeys to Niagara and to other places aggravate all our cares. We'll save our fares. I've a cozy little flat in what is known as Old Manhattan. We'll settle down right here in town. We'll have Manhattan, the Bronx and Staten Island too. It's lovely going through the zoo. It's very fancy on old Delancey Street, you know. The subway charms us so when balmy breezes blow to and fro. And tell me what street compares with Mott Street in July. Sweet push carts gently gliding by. The great big city's a wondrous toy, just made for a girl and boy. We'll turn Manhattan into an Isle of Joy. We'll go to Yonkers, where true love conquers in the wilds, and starve together, dear, in childs. We'll go to Coney and eat bologna on a roll. In Central Park we'll stroll, where our first kiss we stole, soul to soul. And My Fair Lady is a terrific show, they say. We both may see it close someday. The city's glamour can never spoil the dreams of a boy and girl. We'll turn Manhattan into an